Well, welcome back to Bill's One Car Garage. Today we're going to be working in the car, putting in our new Intellitronix gauges in the console and to replace the speedo and tachometer. Alright? Alright. Alright, we're inside the car. I got the driver's seat out, that's why I'm sitting down kind of low. I still have to take out the passenger seat to be able to take off the carpet off the side of the consoles. I've already taken the steering wheel off just for some other stuff I was looking at. I was just looking at my signal switch, make sure everything's good in there. Just as an opportunity while I have stuff apart on the interior. If I want to take apart the steering column to do anything, kind of now is the chance. So you can see here, let me try to figure you out here. I've taken out the speedometer and tach bezel, and then the cluster itself here. So let me see if I can get you figured out. There we go. That's not too bad. Alright, so I have tilt on this. So what I've done is I've tilted down and then I just put a cloth on it, because when you pull this out, it is pretty tight clearance and you will scratch up the top of your steering column. The main wiring for this does have a good amount of play to let you be able to pull it out. The part you're going to get caught up on is the speedometer cable. So you got to reach up, and there's this little spring lever right here that catches the cable. You got to reach up in behind, push this in, and kind of pull on this, and it'll pull your speedometer cable out. Let's see if we can find it in there. Because for this kit, we have to pull out the speedometer cable also. So yeah, so there's the speedometer cable, and there's not a lot of slack on it. So you only have a little bit of room just to start pulling this out and get your hand up behind there, pull that clip off, and that'll release your cable. Then you'll have a little bit more room to be able to pull the wiring, and that's just two clips, one top and bottom, that you squeeze together, and that should pull out nice and easy. This is all factory wiring in here still, except for crappy speaker, which, hey, no wonder that one didn't work. Okay, we'll plug that back in later. But yeah, there we go. So that is that. So like I said, there's 4 bolts on the seats. There's 2 in the front, there's 2 in the back. The easiest thing to do is pull the seat all the way forward and get the back 2 bolts out, and then push the seat all the way back and get the front 2 out. You'll see the front 2 or the back, they might be covered up with a little flap of carpet, so you can see mine here under the flap of carpet. So just have to pull that up and you're all set and get to those bolts. I put those bolts back in just to safekeeping. I know where they are. Part of my thing that I did with all the column and everything here too was to get to the 4 bolts for the vacuum booster for the brakes. It's a little bit easier to see and to manage to get all the bolts, because it is pretty hard, like even right now, to even see any of those bolts. They're way back there. I can just see the edge of one of them that's back there. So yeah, it's a little bit of a difficult job to do, but it's usually doable with some sockets and extensions. So there's, there we go. Shine a little bit of light on this. Let's see if I can get a better light. No, it's going to be bright or bright. Let's try another light here. Oh, there we go. So once you get the seats out, there's going to be 3 screws in this carpet on the side of the console. There's one here. There's one right here, which is right in line with this indent. I think on the cars with power windows, that's where the switches are. And then there's one back here, and this is why you have to pull the seat out to get to this one way back here. 4-speed car. So this is my idea to take out the cigarette lighter. So I bought this little switch panel from Amazon, and I just trimmed out the cigarette lighter a little bit more, and I put in this panel. Oh, I lost my my other rechargeable light. So yeah, so I put this nice little panel in, and it gives me the options for charging, and it has actually a little voltmeter in the middle here, and then it gives you, man, it gives you a full socket to be able to plug other charges in or whatever. You can plug your air compressor into this, whatever you need. And it's got a handy on-off switch. It wasn't that much money. I even forget how much I paid for this, like 18 bucks or 20 bucks or 30. But it came together pretty good, and it went in nice. It's a little bit, I mucked it up a little bit here, but it's hard to tell. This is all my vintage air controls, a stereo, USB. So part of pulling out these side carpet is to be able to pull out the center gauges. There's a couple screws up in the bottom, up in here, so you have to come up in to get them. And other than that, there's one up top, there's another one here, there's one in the side, another one in the side. All of these looks like Allen keys in your gauges are all just ornamental. They're just plastic molded in, so don't try to put a wrench into them. All you're going to do is just make them ugly like this here. Previous owner looks like that's how they tried to get the stereo plate out, and they kind of mucked it up. So that is it. So we'll get all that pulled out, but I think we'll start with the speedometer and tachometer on the bench, and then we'll come back in here. We'll get these all apart and get the original gauges out. All my gauges do work. I'm only doing this because I would like better instrumentation for accuracy, because of course these gauges, you know, they're pretty close, but once you start getting up in performance in the car and you really want to monitor things, digital or new gauges are going to be the way to go. And no matter what, you're going to have to go through this process to pull out your center console or your dash speedometer and tachometer to work on them. Alright, so your lens will be part of your panel in the car. Take it out. There's 5 screws on this that I got here, and then you're going to have a couple of screws, 3 screws up in the top to help hold this all into the dash. And in your cluster you have several Allen head screws that hold this panel on, and it covers all your lights and everything, so that your lights can shine through the middle for your brake, your signals, and your high beams. Alright, so we'll put these away because we don't need these right now. Safekeeping. For later on, I can forget where they are. Turn off my heater because that's annoying. Okay, so remove the 5 Phillips screws from the speedo panel to release the clear plastic lens. Done that. Remove the 6 Allen head screws to release inner black frame. Done that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 throughout the frame. Remove the 3 nut head screws to unfasten the speedo. Okay, so this is the speedo, and we got 3 around it. See what size these are. And yep. This is 1/4 inch. There we go. So these are all 1/4 inch. When you're doing stuff like this, it's usually good to have one of these trays, magnetic trays. Really handy, keep everything organized. Oh, that didn't work. Alright, so this is still following if it's in the car, because it says to remove the center section of the kick panel underneath the steering column, remove the section of heater ducting, to reach up behind to release the speedo cable. Okay, so it says remove factory bulbs out of the speedo and the top. So all these blue ones I'm going to pull out, but it says to leave the ones in for your centers. There you go. Alright. So get all these bulbs out and put them aside. I don't want to break these, but you need to get them out. Put a little bit of, there we go. My fragile office fingers. Alright. So the speedo board should come out. No screws in the back that I see. Alright. There's my speedo out. Don't sell these right away. You're going to need either, if you ever want to put them back in, or first of all, you're going to need your odometer reading, so that way you could program it into your new speedometer so you have an accurate reading. And if you go to sell the car, you're going to want the proper mileage reflected for the car, so you don't get in trouble legally. Okay, so speedo board. There we go. Okay, install the new speedo board by passing the wires through the empty cable hole and press the board's tabs into the housing depressions and fasten with OEM head nut screws. So basically the screws that we took out, we're going to put back in. This extra cable here, this is your programming. So we'll probably end up, once we get this in the car and get this run back down, the little panel on the bottom of the steering column, I'll probably end up putting that there, because that's a good spot for that. Put these back in. Don't forget, these are just plastic. Like everything you're dealing with here is plastic, and my car's a 79, so that makes it 44 years old this year, and you don't want to be breaking stuff for that. What's here? Try to be gentle, because like I said, they're plastic, but also the original speedometer had some little rubber grommets that took up a little bit more of the thickness. You can see here these little rubber grommets, they just pop out. But they were on the original Speedo, and they're a little bit thicker than what they're providing here. Alrighty. It says prepare the tachometer board. Alright, prepare the tachometer board for installation by fastening the included horseshoe adapter. You can peel off the protective film to the outer edge of the board using the Phillips. Okay. By fastening the included horseshoe adapter to the outer edge of the board using the included Phillips screws and locking nuts. We'll pop out this last plastic bit. Okay. So this only goes on one way. There's the hole up here is offset. Alright, so I just finished putting on the plastic on the speedometer tachometer. Some stuff that I did off camera was I put in these bullet connectors. You can get them from Amazon or whatever. So these are the ones I use. They're light duty, which is all that you need anyways. So I put the female ends on all of these. Your button you don't need to do anything with. The connectors for the speedometer, also I put bullet connectors, and this will just make it easier for if I have to replace either one of these units. I can just disconnect them, pull them out, replace it, put on new bullet connectors, and away we go. So let's take a look to the car. There's been a lot of off-camera work that I've done. Start on this side, I guess. So I ran a new wire. So I pulled the speedometer cable out, and I ran a new wire for the speedometer. So this is just a piece of wire that I found in my basket that ended up being exactly right. All I did is I use just a butt connector that you crimpable butt connectors. So I use them, and what I do is I'll peel off the outer piece. Sorry, make you dizzy. Alright, so what I do is I'll take a knife and I'll run it down the sheathing until I split it, and then I can get out the middle connector. Because this is what does all the work. This here just provides you a little bit of insulation on the end, so that nothing touches if there's any wire sticking out or the end of the butt connector itself. But what I do is I shrink wrap everything, so I don't need all this. So all I do is I take this out, make my connections, and then shrink wrap over this in the wire, and it makes it a lot neater, and it'll make it more of a waterproof, weatherproof connection if you need. Like this part here is going to be under the car. So I did that, and then I just added a little bit of shielding just to keep the wires neat, because the wires from their connector from here to here, they're all just loose. So I just put on some wrap, zip tie it up. Nobody will ever see that. That'll be under the car. There's a couple new blue wires here. One leads back to the fan controller, which I'm installing a switch inside, and the other one is from the oil pressure. So my oil pressure here. So all I've done is I've made a connection off of that into the car for the gauges, and they say the ground the other side. So I just grounded it to the intake, because I already have a ground here from my line lock that comes up. So I know it's a good ground. This car is in good condition, so the frame and everything's been good with grounding. Alright, so in the car, I've taken out the side covers off the console. That's why we loosened up the passenger seat to be able to get at those screws. I've loosened them up to get all the center console out. And what I've done is somebody previously had already cut one of the wires for the power windows. So what I did is I used that and I tapped into that and I made 4 leads off of it. And these 4 leads are speedometer power, tachometer power, power to the speedometer sensor, and I have one more because I put a little switch in the corner of this trim piece that goes up under the steering column. That's my activation for my fan, and that's what the other blue wire was that ran into the engine compartment. So that's it. So I just got to finish up these. Got to put bullet connectors on the end, the males, and that'll connect to my instruments, and they'll fit back in here with my console. And I'll put everything back together and it'll be ready to go, and then I'll show you what looks all lit up and all back together. I don't think there's anything else really besides some wiring. So the one reason I used this power here from the power windows, it does have a 30 amp fuse or circuit breaker. I could bring that down to a smaller inline one, but there's already one in there, and I should be able to pull that out and put a smaller fuse, because in the instructions they're asking for 5 amps for this unit. So if I throw a 5 or a 10 in there, it'll probably be more than enough, and to handle everything, and the wiring won't take a beating, because I don't think this 18 gauge will handle 30 amps. Alright, so we shall see. Alright, this is the center console gauges. I'm going to be fixing up this radio mount while I'm in here also. So first thing is take off the clock mechanism here. So the clock, you just hold the outside, and then you just use a fine screwdriver, flat, for the inside actual screw. It's 2 pieces. There's a small barrel along the inside the large knob, and that gets that out. Okay, and remove 4 Phillips screws from the black console faceplate to release. Alright, so got 1, 2, 3, 4. Get those out. Still using our little bin. These are all 1/4 inch heads on these. That one's a little tight up against the edge. Let's use a wrench. Let's get it enough to grab it. There we go. Okay. So there we go. We got these out. Okay, remove the bulbs. But not for the 4 warning lights. So the 4 warning lights there. There we go. Remove the 3 nuts from the back of each of the 5 gauges in turn using deep sockets, nut drivers, or pliers, and set aside the OEM gauges. See if they're 5/16. Oh, they are. Okay. So what I'll do too is when I'm done, I'll put the these little nuts back on them. So we take out the gauges. Oh. So we are going to have to take out the other lights because we're gonna. There's nuts in it, other nuts in behind. Also, at least on your coolant temperature. So I'm not changing these out because they didn't work. I'm changing them out. Like I said, just for accuracy, I like to just have more accurate gauges, and these digital ones, I think they look nice, and they'll be nice in the car. So just be careful with this printed board, because it is printed. This is the clock. Amazingly enough, this clock still works. I'm sure everybody has heard of, oh, the clock is the first thing to die. Not this one. This one works pretty good. Just half-assed putting these back in. So I don't lose them. And I'm going to do the same with the clock knob. There we go. That's a printed board, and that was on fuel, low fuel. So that connected with, this must be, yeah, the fuel gauge. So I must have in the circuit that when it gets down to 0 ohms, because the GM sender, I believe it goes between 0 and 90 ohms. 90 should be full and 0 is an empty tank. So this must be when the sender gets down to 0 ohms that it will light the bulb. Alright, so we'll carefully pull off this printed board, because it is plastic and these are our just copper. Alright, so I got their panel out. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our bulbs back in to hold the printed board, printed circuit here in place. That should be pretty good. And then as long as this here is free to let the original connector go back in, so it will still connect to these bulbs. Alright. So it says to gently push in. This new cluster and run the wires through one of the holes. So I think the only obvious thing to do is this big hole here, because you still want that one free. Says to gently push it in. And gently but firmly press it in. Okay. So the problem is, I see this corner, it's right on the radius, and I don't want to break the board, but I assume they planned for that. But I think what I might do, just in case, the other side's fine. The other side just gets into the radius. But I think what I'll do is I'm going to take a little plier here. Oh, there we go. Yeah, but then, yeah, see, it shuffles it. If you do that, it shuffles it over just enough to say it screws up the other ones. So let's just massage our tin a little bit here. Alright, I might just nip that. Don't know which one's going to be best for nipping it, so I brought them all. Let's see. Mm. There we go. It looks like it's lined up. Like I said, I just nipped just the tin just enough here, just to make a little bit of clearance, just to say I can get this corner of the board in here. Alright, so the car's all back together, wiring's all nicely tucked away. Everything's cleaned up. So let's have a look at our end result with these gauges. So there we go. Looks good. So it's late at night. I'm not going to start my car up. It's too loud. Anyways, so that's it. Yeah, success. Everything works and everything looks good. Please subscribe. Okay, see you next time. Thanks. Bye.